My name is Vance Marrow, and until 6 months ago, I was studying museum conservation at Westlake University. I wasn't exceptional, just dedicated and careful with details. I specialized in religious artifacts and spent most of my time in the lab carefully removing centuries of grime from forgotten treasures. My parents died when I was in high school. A car accident in bad weather. There was some money from the insurance, enough for college if I was careful, but no other family to speak of. I threw myself into my studies, finding comfort in the methodical work of restoration. There was something soothing about bringing order to damaged things, revealing the beauty hidden beneath years of neglect. My advisor, Professor Lowell, took an interest in my work. She said I had good hands, steady, patient, attentive to detail. I spent 3 years under her guidance, learning techniques for preserving everything from wooden icons to silver chalices. My specialty became identifying the correct cleaning solution for different materials, knowing exactly what would remove centuries of tarnish without harming the artifact beneath. That changed when Professor Lowell asked me to assist with a private collection. The owner, a wealthy woman named Theodora Finch, had dozens of religious items from all over the world. Some were beautiful, others plain, but all were old. I spent weekends at her estate, carefully examining and cleaning pieces that hadn't been properly cared for in decades. The item that changed my life was a small wooden box with faded carvings. It seemed unremarkable compared to the gold-plated crucifixes and jeweled prayer books in the collection. But something about it drew me in, the precision of its joinery, the way the wood had darkened with age to a deep amber color, the faint traces of paint still visible in the carved grooves. While cleaning it, I accidentally pressed a hidden panel that released a spring mechanism. A compartment opened in what I had thought was the solid bottom of the box. Inside was a tiny silver bell that made absolutely no sound when rung. Within days, odd things began happening in my apartment. The temperature would drop in specific spots. Objects would move between rooms. The sound of quiet weeping came from empty corners. I told no one, thinking I was having some kind of breakdown from overwork. Then Remy Voss showed up at my door. She was tall, with graying hair cropped short, and spoke with a faint accent I couldn't place. "You've activated something you don't understand," she said. "Now you have 2 choices. Give it to us and forget everything. Or join us and learn to fix what you've started." That's how I discovered the Order of the Faithful Hand. A secret clergy that has existed for centuries. They travel the world, identifying and cleansing haunted religious artifacts. Not destroying them, but purifying them of the memories and pain they've absorbed. Remy explained that certain objects, used in moments of intense emotion or present during terrible events, can become vessels for those experiences. They don't contain ghosts exactly, but something more like echoes that grow stronger with time. The order needed new members, and my accidental activation of the bell made me a candidate. I had nothing keeping me at the university. No family waiting for me, just student debt and a studio apartment. Within a week, I'd withdrawn from my program and begun my training. The work is dangerous but meaningful. We return peace to objects that have known only suffering for centuries. But there are rules we must follow, strict protocols developed over generations that keep us safe. Breaking them can be fatal. My first solo assignment begins tomorrow. I'm terrified and exhilarated. This is my journal of what happens next. The building was an old church converted into offices, red brick with arched windows reflecting the morning sun. My contact, Dr. Eliza Van, met me at the front entrance. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with dark skin and silver-rimmed glasses that caught the light. "You're from the Order?" she asked, voice low though no one else was around. I nodded and followed her inside. The main hall had been divided into cubicles, but the vaulted ceiling remained, making voices echo strangely through the space. "We found it during renovations," she said, leading me to a back stairwell. The contractor called me when his workers refused to continue. said they heard singing coming from the walls. The basement was colder than it should have been for May. Long tables lined with computer equipment filled most of the space. In the center sat a small altar of pale gray stone. It was hidden behind a false wall, Dr. Van explained. The singing stopped when we moved it out here, but what? I asked when she hesitated. People who stay down here too long report feeling watched. 2 staff members quit last week. And there are these. She handed me a stack of photos. Each showed what looked like the same figure standing in different parts of the building, a shape both blurry and too defined, like someone had drawn a person with careful precision and then smudged the edges. Security cameras caught these over the past 3 nights, always between 2 and 4 a.m. I studied the photos. This was exactly what Remy had prepared me for, an object saturated with memory, trying to recreate events from its past. I need to be alone with it, I said, recalling the first rule. Never cleanse an artifact with witnesses present. Dr. Van nodded. We've cleared the building for the day. How long will you need? Until sunset at least. I set my bag down and pulled out the tools I'd need. White candles, a silver bowl, purified water, sage, and a thin rope of braided red thread. I'll call when it's done. She left me there with the altar. As soon as the door closed behind her, I felt the temperature drop another few degrees. I took a deep breath and reviewed the rules Remy had drilled into me. 1. Never cleanse an artifact with witnesses present. 2. Always create a boundary circle with unbroken red thread. 3. Keep purified water nearby at all times. 4. Never address any presence directly until the final stage. 5. If you hear your name called, do not respond. Simple rules, but according to Remy, they had saved countless lives over the centuries. I carefully laid out my supplies and began. First, I created a circle around the altar, using the red thread. It needed to be perfect. No gaps, no overlaps. I worked slowly, making sure every section of thread touched the next. When I completed the circle, I felt the air become heavier, like the seconds before a thunderstorm. I placed the white candles at 4 points around the circle and lit them. Their flames burned straight up without flickering, despite the drafty basement. I poured the purified water into the silver bowl and set it beside me, outside the circle. Now came the hardest part. I needed to touch the altar and open myself to whatever memories it contained. This would draw out the presence attached to it. Remy had warned that this moment was always unpredictable. I removed my gloves and placed both palms flat on the cold stone. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the stone warmed beneath my hands, not slightly, but as if it had been sitting in direct sunlight for hours. I almost pulled away, but remembered Remy's warning. Once contact is made, breaking it prematurely strengthens the attachment. The warmth spread up my arms, and with it came waves of emotion that weren't mine. Fear and desperation so intense, my vision blurred with tears. I caught fragments of memory, a young woman kneeling, dozens of candles, whispered prayers, a baby's weak cry. Then suddenly, across the room, I saw her. A woman in a long dress that seemed to shift between styles from different eras. Her face was clear one moment, then indistinct the next, like water settling after being disturbed. She watched me with sad eyes. I kept my gaze steady, but did not speak to her. Rule 4. Never address any presence directly until the final stage. The woman moved closer, stopping at the edge of my red thread circle. She looked down at it, then back to me. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear what she said. Hours passed this way. I remained connected to the altar, absorbing the memories it held. The woman walked the perimeter of my circle, sometimes vanishing only to reappear elsewhere. Occasionally, she would reach out as if to touch me, but never cross the boundary. As sunset approached, the memories became clearer. This altar had stood in a small chapel where women came to pray for children, for fertility, for safe deliveries, for sick infants to recover. The stone had absorbed centuries of tears, of hope, of grief. The woman I saw was not one person, but a composite of hundreds who had knelt here in their darkest moments. The final stage of cleansing required me to acknowledge what I had learned and offer release. I sat back, breaking contact with the stone, and addressed the presence directly for the first time. "I see you," I said, my voice hoarse from hours of silence. "I know what this altar has witnessed, the prayers, the pain, the hope." The woman stopped pacing and faced me fully. "These memories have been honored," I continued, following the ritual phrases Remy had taught me. "They need no longer bind you to this place. What was given in faith has been received. What was lost has been mourned. What was hoped for has been acknowledged." I took the sage, lit it from one of the candles, and waved the smoke over the altar. "This stone need not bear witness anymore. The burden is lifted, the memories released." The woman's form began to waver, like heat rising from hot pavement. Her expression changed from sorrow to something resembling peace. "You are remembered," I said, completing the ritual. "But you are free." She dissolved into the air, not dramatically or suddenly, but gradually, like fog burning away in morning light. The basement felt different immediately. Still old, still cold, but without the weight of watching eyes. I sat there for a while, exhausted but satisfied. I had completed my first solo cleansing. The altar was now just stone again. I packed my supplies, broke the red thread circle, and called Dr. Van. "It's done," I said. "The building should feel normal now." "So quickly?" she asked, sounding surprised. "The order said it might take days." I checked my watch and was startled to see it was nearly 9 p.m. What had felt like hours had actually been almost 12 hours of work. "Time moves differently during a cleansing," I explained, repeating what Remy had told me. "I'll be out front in 15 minutes." I gave the basement one last look before leaving. The altar sat quietly, its purpose fulfilled centuries ago, its accumulated memories now released. I felt both drained and oddly fulfilled. This was what the order did, not destroying the past, but helping it find rest. Outside, the night air was warm against my face. Dr. Van was waiting with a thermos of coffee. "Will it stay cleansed?" she asked as she handed me a steaming cup. "As long as it's treated with respect," I answered. "Display it somewhere, acknowledge its history. Objects only become troubled when they're forgotten or mistreated." She nodded thoughtfully. "The university museum has been asking about it. We could donate it there." "That would be perfect." We sipped our coffee in comfortable silence. I didn't tell her about the woman I'd seen or the centuries of memories I'd absorbed. The order kept those details private, out of respect for both the living and the remnants of the past. Later that night in my hotel room, I called Remy to report my success. "Well done," she said, "but don't get overconfident. Your next assignment will be more challenging." "When do I start?" I asked. "Tomorrow. There's a music box in Newport that's causing problems. Pack your bags and check your email for details." I hung up feeling a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. This was my life now, traveling from one haunted object to another, absorbing centuries of forgotten memories and releasing them. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman from the altar, her face shifting between dozens of different women who had knelt there over the centuries. Their collective sorrow and hope tumbled through my mind like clothes in a dryer. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and sat at the small desk by the window. I opened my journal and began writing down everything I could remember about the cleansing, a practice Remy had insisted was crucial. The memories will fade with time, she'd told me during training. But some fragments might stick with you. Writing helps process them. I filled 10 pages before my hand cramped. The faces, the prayers, the tears shed on that cold stone. I captured as much as I could. When I finally finished, I felt lighter somehow, as if putting the memories on paper had removed some of their weight from my mind. Outside, the sky was turning from black to deep blue. Dawn approached. I showered, packed my few belongings, and checked out of the hotel. The morning air was crisp and clean as I walked to the nearby diner for breakfast. The waitress who served me coffee had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "You look like you've had a long night," she said, filling my cup. "Long day yesterday," I replied. "New job. Must be a tough one." I smiled. "Important, though." She nodded and moved on to the next table. I wondered what she would think if I told her the truth. That yesterday, I'd spent hours communicating with the remnants of hundreds of women's prayers and grief. That I'd absorbed centuries of memory from a stone altar. That somewhere in my mind now lived fragments of people long dead. My phone buzzed with an email, details about Newport. The music box belonged to a wealthy family and had recently awakened after being found in their attic. Classic scenario, an object forgotten for generations suddenly brought back into use. The memories it contained had been dormant, not gone. I paid for breakfast and headed to the train station. As the landscape rolled by outside the window, I thought about how quickly my life had changed. 6 months ago, my biggest concern had been finishing my thesis on preservation techniques for wooden artifacts. Now I traveled with sage and red thread in my bag, ready to confront the emotional residue left behind by the dead. Remy had explained that what we dealt with weren't exactly ghosts, at least not as most people understood them. People leave impressions, she'd said. Intense emotion, especially during traumatic events, can be absorbed by nearby objects. Those impressions accumulate, strengthen, and eventually try to recreate the circumstances of their creation. Like psychic recordings? I'd asked. She'd frowned at the term. More like emotional fossils. Each layer preserves a moment of feeling, building up over time. Our job is to acknowledge those feelings, honor them, and then help them dissipate. The train arrived in Newport by mid-afternoon. The coastal town was beautiful, all Victorian elegance and ocean views. I took a taxi to the address I'd been given, reviewing the rules in my mind as we drove. As I drifted toward sleep that night, exhausted from my first successful cleansing, I thought about the woman by the altar and the countless others whose emotions had been trapped in that stone. We all leave marks on the world, I realized. Some just happen to leave deeper impressions than others. The Newport assignment was different from the start. Instead of a public building, I found myself standing before a massive Victorian mansion overlooking the Atlantic. Waves crashed against the cliffs below as I rang the doorbell, the deep chime echoing inside. The door opened to reveal a tall man with carefully styled white hair. He wore an expensive suit that somehow looked both new and from another era. "You must be Vance," he said, extending his hand. "Vaughn Thorne. Thank you for coming on such short notice." I shook his hand, noting how cold his fingers were despite the warm June day. The order said it was urgent. He nodded and ushered me inside. The foyer was impressive. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, crystal chandeliers that sent rainbows dancing across the walls. Money lived here, old money, the kind that collected things simply because they could. "It's been in the family for generations," Thorne said, leading me through a hallway lined with portraits. "The music box, I mean, never caused problems before." The faces in the portraits seemed to follow me as we walked. Stern-looking men and tight-lipped women from different eras, all with the same pale blue eyes as Thorne. Their painted gazes felt judgmental, as if they didn't approve of a stranger being invited into their domain. "Tell me about these people," I said, gesturing to the portraits. Thorn glanced at them with mild disinterest. Ancestors. The Thorn family has been in Newport since the 1700s. Shipping merchants originally, then real estate, now mostly investments and trust funds. We passed a portrait of a young woman with a softer expression than the others. Unlike the rest, she wasn't painted sitting stiffly in a chair or standing by a desk. Instead, she was outdoors, near a rose garden, her hand reaching out to touch a bloom. "And her?" I asked. Thorn's expression changed slightly, a tightening around the eyes. "My great-great-grandmother, Mary Ann. She was different from the rest of the family, more artistic." Something about his tone made me think there was more to that story. But we had reached the end of the hallway, and he gestured me toward a set of double doors. "What changed?" I asked, returning to the matter of the music box. He hesitated, then sighed. "My daughter Wren found it in the attic 3 weeks ago. She wound it up, and since then." He trailed off, glancing nervously at the second floor. "Well, you'll see." He hesitated, then sighed. "My daughter Wren found it in the attic 3 weeks ago. She wound it up, and since then." He trailed off, glancing nervously at the second floor. "Well, you'll see." He led me to a sitting room where the music box waited on a table. It was beautiful, polished maple with inlaid mother-of-pearl designs. A tiny ballerina once stood on top, but only her feet remained, broken off at the ankles. "Where is your daughter now?" I asked, remembering Rule 1. Never cleanse an artifact with witnesses present. "At her mother's for the weekend. The staff has been given 2 days off. We're alone in the house." "Perfect." I set my bag down and began unpacking my tools. "I need to know what's been happening," I said. "Exactly what changed after she wound it." Thorn paced near the window, keeping his distance from the music box. "It plays by itself, always the same song, always at 3:17 a.m. Wren started sleepwalking, ending up in different rooms with no memory of moving. And there are visitors. Visitors? People in the house. People who aren't there when you look directly at them, always glimpsed from the corner of your eye. Sometimes we hear them talking but can't make out the words." I nodded. This was textbook, an object replaying fragments of its past. "Anything else?" He hesitated again. "Yes. Names appear in the fog on the bathroom mirrors. Always the same 3. Adelaide, Jonathan, and Peter. Do those names mean anything to you?" "Nothing. I researched the family history back 5 generations and found no record of them." I finished arranging my supplies. "I'll need to work alone, Mr. Thorn. The cleansing can take hours. It's best if you leave the house entirely." He seemed relieved at the suggestion. "I'll get a room in town. Call me when it's done." He handed me a business card with his cell number. Of course. After he left, I examined the music box more carefully. It was older than it first appeared, mid-19th century, probably European craftsmanship. The key was ornate brass, worn smooth from use. I followed the protocol, creating my boundary circle with the red thread, setting up candles, preparing the silver bowl of purified water. But as I finished, I realized I'd made a mistake. The circle was too small. The music box needed to be inside it with me, not outside where I could observe it safely. I had to start over, carefully collecting the thread and repositioning everything. As I worked, the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. My breath began to fog in the air. Just a normal temperature fluctuation, I told myself, though I knew better. The object was aware of me now, responding to my preparations. With the new circle complete, I sat cross-legged on the floor with the music box in front of me. I needed to wind it, to activate whatever memory it contained. My hand hesitated over the key. Once I turned it, there was no going back. I thought of Remy's training. Fear is natural. Respect it, but don't let it control you. I grasped the key and wound it fully. The mechanism tightened with each turn until it would go no further. I released it and waited. Gentle notes filled the room. A lullaby I didn't recognize, slow and sweet. The broken ballerina feet pivoted slowly as if the complete figure still danced above them. At first, nothing else happened. Then a child laughed somewhere in the house. It was distant, coming from upstairs, the sound of pure joy. Little footsteps pattered across the ceiling, moving from room to room. Another laugh, then another, different from the first. 2 children playing. I remained still, following Rule 4. Never address any presence directly until the final stage. This was just the beginning, the artifact warming up, replaying the happier memories first. The lullaby continued, repeating its cycle as the key slowly unwound. When it finally stopped, the footsteps and laughter ceased too. The silence that followed felt expectant, like the pause between lightning and thunder. I took the moment of quiet to center myself, controlling my breathing the way Remy had taught me. The first stage of memories was usually the easiest, the happy times, before whatever trauma had embedded itself in the object. It was what came next that would test me. During training, Remy had explained that cleansing wasn't just about releasing the memories, but about experiencing them in sequence. You have to understand the full story, she'd said. Only then can you offer true release. The air around me grew dense, making each breath feel like drawing in syrup. A tingling sensation spread across my skin as the second wave of memories prepared to emerge. I kept my focus on the music box, grounding myself in the present moment while staying open to the past. Then came a woman's voice, singing along to the now silent lullaby. She was somewhere nearby, perhaps in the hallway outside the sitting room. Her voice was beautiful, but tinged with sadness. The door to the sitting room creaked open slowly. I kept my eyes on the music box, resisting the urge to look. Rule 5. If you hear your name called, do not respond. Though no one had called me yet, I felt the presence evaluating me, trying to make a connection. Cold air swept into the room, bringing with it the scent of roses and something medicinal. I heard soft footsteps approach, stopping just at the edge of my circle. I felt eyes on me but maintained my focus on the music box. This was the hard part, allowing the presence to grow stronger without acknowledging it directly. Adelaide. The voice was behind me now, a man's voice, tight with worry. Adelaide. The doctor is here. Another voice, fainter. It's too late, Jonathan. They both have the fever. I pieced together the narrative as more voices joined in, fragments of conversation from long ago. A family, mother, father, 2 young children named Adelaide and Jonathan, and a baby, Peter. A sudden illness, a doctor's visit, quarantine, the music box playing that lullaby day and night to comfort the sick children. I found myself mentally organizing the information as it came to me, placing events in chronological order. First joy, a family with young children, the music box a treasured possession, then concern, the first signs of illness, then fear, the realization that what they faced was serious, and finally, grief, the awful certainty of loss. This was different from the altar. Those memories had been an accumulation from many different people across centuries. This was more focused, a single family's tragedy captured in minute detail. The specificity made it more intense, more intimate. As the memories continued to pour in, I noticed something concerning. The boundary between their experiences and my awareness was thinning. I wasn't just observing their story anymore. I was feeling it. The father's panic as his children's fevers rose. The mother's exhaustion after days without sleep. The older children's confusion as they grew weaker. Remy had warned about this. Sometimes you'll feel yourself slipping too deep, she'd said. If that happens, focus on your physical body, your breathing, the floor beneath you, the air on your skin. Stay anchored in the present. I followed her advice now, consciously noting the hardwood floor beneath me, the slight draft from the window, the smell of the candles burning around my circle. It helped maintain the separation between their story and my reality. The temperature continued to drop until I could see frost forming on the windows despite the summer heat outside. The voices grew more numerous, more distressed. "Save them, doctor. Please. Keep them comfortable. That's all we can do now. Play the music box again. Peter likes it." The sound of weeping came from all directions. The music box key began to turn on its own, rewinding, then released. The lullaby played again, slower this time, as if the mechanism was struggling. The room darkened, though it was only mid-afternoon. Shapes began to form in the corners, indistinct at first, then more solid. A woman in a high-necked dress, a man with a beard and round glasses, two small children holding hands. They approached my circle, stopping at its edge. Their eyes fixed on the music box with such longing that I felt it like a physical pain in my chest. I continued to absorb the memories, letting them wash over me in waves. This was why the order existed. These emotions were too powerful to remain trapped, endlessly replaying their most painful moments. Hours passed. The family's story became clearer. An epidemic had swept through Newport in the 1870s. This family had lost all 3 children within days of each other. The music box had played constantly during their final hours. Afterward, the parents couldn't bear to hear it again. It was packed away in the attic, where it absorbed decades of grief without release. When the sun began to set, I knew it was time for the final stage. I looked up directly at the family for the first time. They seemed surprised, as if they'd grown used to being unseen. "I know what happened," I said softly. "I know about Adelaide, Jonathan, and Peter. I know about the fever, the quarantine. I know how the music box played while you waited and hoped, and then mourned." The figures grew more defined as I spoke, their expressions changing from surprise to attentiveness. "These memories have been honored," I continued, following the ritual. "They need no longer bind you to this place or this object. What was lost has been mourned. What was loved has been remembered." I lit the sage and waved it over the music box. "This melody need not play forever. The grief it carries can be released. The joy it once brought can be remembered instead." The family members looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. The children smiled first, then the parents, sad but accepting. "You are remembered," I said, completing the ritual. "But you are free." The figures began to fade, not all at once but in stages. The children went first, their forms dissolving like mist, leaving behind the echo of laughter. The mother followed, her sad eyes finally closing in peace. The father was last, giving me a small nod of gratitude before he too vanished. The room grew warmer immediately. The frost on the windows melted, leaving droplets that caught the last rays of sunset. The music box sat silent, its burden lifted. I broke the red thread circle and packed away my supplies. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the emotional weight of what I'd witnessed. Each cleansing left me carrying a small piece of those memories, a toll the order considered necessary and honorable. I called Thorne to tell him it was done. He sounded relieved but wary. "Is it safe now? For Ren to be around it?" "Yes," I assured him. "But don't hide it away again. That's what caused the problem in the first place. Objects need acknowledgement, not isolation." "What should I do with it?" "Display it somewhere, wind it occasionally. Remember that it brought joy before it knew sorrow." When Thorne returned, I explained what I'd learned about the family. He seemed genuinely moved by their story. "I'll research them properly," he promised. "Make sure they're remembered as people, not just ghosts." I nodded, too tired for more words. The cleansing had taken more from me than I'd expected. I needed rest before my next assignment. As I gathered my things to leave, Thorn hesitated by the door. "There's something else you should know," he said, his voice low. "Something about the music box." I paused, suddenly alert despite my exhaustion. "What is it?" He glanced around as if afraid of being overheard, though we were alone in the house. It wasn't just found in our attic. It was hidden deliberately, sealed in a wall cavity behind a brick that had been cemented differently from the others. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the residual cold from the cleansing. Who sealed it there? I think it was my great-great-grandmother, Mary Ann, the one in the portrait you noticed. He ran a hand through his white hair, messing up its careful styling. Family records say she was unstable after losing a close friend's children to scarlet fever. She became obsessed with objects that had bad energy, her words, apparently. "She knew," I murmured. "She understood what these objects could do." Thorn nodded slowly. "There might be more in this house, other things she sealed away. I should have told him to contact the Order if he found anything else. That was protocol. But something made me hand him my personal card instead. 'Call me directly,' I said. 'Day or night.' He took the card, relief visible in his face. 'Thank you.' As my taxi drove away from the mansion, I wondered about Mary Ann Thorn. Had she been a member of the Order, or just someone naturally sensitive to the memories objects could hold? Either way, she'd recognized the music box for what it was and tried to contain it the only way she knew how. How many other people throughout history had done the same? How many haunted objects remained sealed in walls, buried in gardens, locked in attics, ticking time bombs of memory waiting to be rediscovered? Back in my hotel room, I called Remy to report. 2 successful cleansings, she said, approval warming her voice. The Order is impressed. It was harder than the first, I admitted. I felt more connected to them. That's normal. Each cleansing opens you further, makes you more receptive. She paused. It's why we have another rule I haven't told you yet. My stomach tightened. What rule? Members of the Order must undergo their own cleansing once a year. The memories we absorb need release too. I thought about the emotions that still lingered inside me, the desperate prayers at the altar, the family's grief over their children. Already they felt like part of me. When? I asked. Not yet. You have more work to do first. Check your email. There's a tapestry in Chicago that's keeping an entire apartment building awake with weeping. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. Each cleansing left pieces behind, fragments of other people's lives that now lived inside me. What would happen after 10 cleansings, 20, 100? Would those memories eventually overwhelm my own? I went to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. Did I look different? Could strangers tell that I carried centuries of other people's emotions inside me? The mirror fogged slightly, though the room wasn't particularly warm. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought I saw names begin to form in the condensation. I quickly wiped it clear with my hand, breathing harder than I should have been. Just tired, I said to my reflection. Just need some sleep. I returned to the bed and opened my journal, adding detailed notes about the music box and the family I'd helped release. The writing helped, as it had after the altar. By the time I finished, my hands had stopped trembling. I wondered if Remy had known from the beginning how this work would change me. Probably. The Order had existed for centuries. They must have seen countless members come and go, each altered by the memories they absorbed and released. But I also felt stronger somehow, more connected to the world and its history. I was part of something ancient and meaningful. How many people could say that? I opened my laptop to check my email about Chicago, ready for whatever memories awaited me there.